So we want to simplify this complex fraction. The goal is that in order to simplify, we have to have the numerator as one fraction and the denominator as the other fraction, and then we can continue to simplify more. So let's concentrate on the numerator first. We have to have the common denominator. We have 5n and 10m squared. Now, if you have variables, you end up looking at just multiplying both of those together. But what is the common denominator between the 5 and the 10? Well, it ends up being 10 because 5 can go into 10. So since we know that the common denominator is going to be 10m squared n, then we got to figure out, okay, what do we multiply this 5n to have it equal 10m squared n? Well, we know that 2 times 5 is 10, and then we need the m squared. So we're going to multiply on this fraction right here by 2m squared. Now on the other side, we've got 10m squared, but we've got to have a common denominator to be 10m squared n. So all we need to do is multiply both the numerator and denominator by n. Since we already know what the common denominator is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and put the 10m squared n. Now if I look at multiplying this right here, 2m squared times 4m, that's going to equal 8m cubed. And then on the other side, n squared times n is going to be n cubed. Now let's do some work on getting a single fraction in this area right here. So we need to find out what the common denominator is between the two here. Now remember that on variables, in order to have the common denominator between the variable, it's the highest exponent. And so if we were to look at we'll look at the variables in a minute, but if we look at the common denominator between 2 and 1, it's going to be 2. And remember, we said that the least common denominator between the variable is going to be the highest exponent. The highest exponent between the m's is going to be m, and that's it, because m to the 0 equals 1, and then this is m to the first. So that's the reason why that the common denominator is m. So let's write that down. And then the highest exponents between the n, we've got n squared and n. So the highest exponent is going to be n squared. So then that's going to be my least common denominator. So now I got to figure out, okay, what am I going to multiply to get 2m n squared if I've got n squared here? I need to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 2m. So let's look at what we would have to multiply this to get 2m n squared. Well, it's only n. So I already know what my denominator is going to be. It's going to be 2m n squared. It's going to be the same. 2m times 1 is 2m plus 1 times n is just n. Now that I've achieved to where I've got a fraction up here and one fraction down here, now I have to divide the whole thing all together. So I'm going to use copy dot flop. I wrote it out so that you can see it. I just rewritten this where I used the division sign rather than the fraction bar. So this fraction right here, or this rational expression here, is being divided by this rational expression. So now let's do the copy dot flop. So this is copy. I copied this right here. Dot flop, because I switched the numerator and the denominator right here. And so if we go ahead and simplify this, we know that the m over m squared is just going to be m left in the denominator, and then the n can cancel. And then if we look at 2 over 10 right here, okay, I can't do anything with this. It's tempting to go ahead and do that, but I've got an addition sign right here. Same thing with here. This stays together. It's all of it or none of it, and in this case, it's none of it. But if I've got 2 and 10 here, that would be 1 over 5. So this would cancel here, and then this would be 5. So this is what it would simplify to. So once that we look at what we have, you notice that this factor right here is going to be this is a perfect cubed, and this here is a perfect cubed as well. And so we have to use the sum of the cube. So I'm just kind of working off to the side here on this. So 8m cubed is actually a perfect cube because 2 to the third power equals 8. So this would become 2m cubed plus n cubed. So this is our formula for the sum of the cube. So we know that a is going to equal 2m, and a squared will equal 4m squared. And b is the n, and b squared equals n squared. So let's go ahead and let's substitute. A plus b, 2m plus n, times a squared, which is 4m squared, minus a times b. So basically what you're doing is you're multiplying 2m times n, so it would be 2m n, and then plus b squared, which is n squared. So now we're going to go ahead and put all of this and substitute it for this now that we factored it. So if you can tell, this is where we did the sum of the cube. It's n times, and then it's all of this right here. Now you can see even more what we can cancel. As you can tell, we can cancel the 2m plus n right here. And so now we have our final answer to be n times the quantity of 4m squared minus 2mn plus n squared, all divided by 5m.